Hello creeps! Andy here, and today I wanted to talk about the book Negative Space by B.R. Yeager. Still don't know how to pronounce it. A while ago, I had said that I kind of wanted to do a little bit more of a deep dive into some books. My dog's just sighing deeply. So that's what we're doing today. I wanted to talk about this book because I'm still thinking about this one. I read it a while ago, and it's still on my mind. With this book, here, I'm gonna put my little thing here so you can look at my notes. Okay, this book is such a unique read, and that most books are plot driven, where there's like one basic plot throughout the story, and there is a plot in this book, but this book is such an experience reading it in itself that I'm not going to, I don't think, ruin anything by telling you what I think of the story. You'll come to your own conclusions while reading it, and it might be helpful to have some of these ideas in the back of your head while you're reading it, because it's such a weird fever dream, hallucinogenic, odd book that, I don't know, maybe it would be helpful. I'm not saying that my ideas are the right ones, but it might be interesting to think of someone else's perspective when going into it. I'm not going to talk about the ending or like anything that's going to give anything away. However, I will obviously be talking about specific plot points within the story, so I am going to be giving away some stuff, but I don't think it'll ruin the read is what I was trying to say. But obviously use your own discretion. If you don't want to hear about this book before you read it, totally understand. That being said, this is the first time I've read this book, and usually when I'm doing kind of deep dives into books, I've read them multiple times and I have more of a grasp on them. This is my first time reading this guy. There are absolutely things that I've missed. There are things that I'm going to think differently as you guys on, so I really am curious what your guys' opinion of this book is and what the things I have to say are, any additions you have to make. I mean, I just would love to have a conversation with you guys down below about this book. So let's first give you a quick synopsis. The book is about these three characters. I don't even remember their names. We have Jill, Lou, and Amir. Those are the three characters. We get their perspectives throughout the book, but the story is all about this guy, Tyler, but we never get his perspective. It's written in such an interesting way where it's not chapters, but they're there are chapters, but they're sectioned off from characters. So this is what Amir's telling us, and then we flip the page and we have Jill, we have Lou, we have Jill, we have Amir, and it just goes back and forth throughout those characters. There are still chapters, but what I'm saying is the chapters aren't indicative of who's speaking. It's multiple characters within each chapter. It's about this little town. There's this new drug on the market called Whirl, and it is wild to read about. The town also has a really high rate of suicide, and there are these forums. Specifically, Lou in the book is the one who goes to these forums, and there's a bunch of writing about what's going on, who the next suicide victim will be, where their bodies are. Like, they make it a game to go and see. So although it's kind of based in reality, like most of the stuff is based in reality, it's also like not our reality, you know what I mean? It's the characters all act very different from a normal group of teenagers. I don't know if nihilistic is the right term, but they definitely take death very lightly and don't seem to care that a lot of people are losing their lives around them. That's kind of the basis of the story. I mean, really, there's a new drug on the market, a bunch of suicides are taking place, and you have this like very weird way that the story is being told about Tyler, and you get to see his descent into kind of madness using this drug and all of these weird things that happen. There are also rituals that go along with using this drug, which we'll get into just a little teeny, we'll just touch on that a little bit, but that is kind of the basis of this whole book. There's a lot of repetition in this. There's, I see you, do you see me, I see you, can you see me? Those are all different quotes from different pages of the book. So there is a lot of repetition. There's also some things that I just like don't know what to make of. For example, there's a lot of use of animals in this book, and I just have not figured out what that means. So if you guys have an idea on that, please let me know. But there are geese, frogs, dogs, slugs, birds. I mean, just like an overabundance of animals. There are so many amazing quotes. Let me just flip through and read you a few just random quotes that I highlighted. I ate my suicide note in the hospital bathroom. Oh, this is a quote that I posted on Instagram. This is one of my favorite lines. Okay, I talked about this new drug on the market. It's called Whirl. This is through the forum that Lou's looking at. Just smoked Whirl for the first time. Saw my dad and my dog. Both died last year. They were folded up on the bed like a pile of clothes. Like, this is what I'm talking about. It's such a weird, hallucinogenic, wild ride. I just loved every page of this, even if I had no idea what was going on. I could finally feel how little impact I've ever had on the world. Everyone around me felt as hollow as balloons. The writing in this is just so superb. I probably loved Harvey more than anyone else in the world. He made more sense to me than any person I knew. I believe that this is the dog. Yeah, that's why I highlighted it, because I was like, I feel that, man. Anyways, just a lot of really great quotes in here. Like, it'd become necessary to kill others to feed myself, to clothe myself to heal, patching my wounds with their hair and skin. I mean, come on, this book is just awesome. The floating people looked like my insides, women and men with knives in their faces. But as far as the drug world goes, we do get some interesting commentary on what this drug is. Again, I don't know that we're ever given answers, so if you're the type of person that doesn't like books left for interpretation, I truly don't know how you'll feel about this, because almost everything is up for the interpretation of the reader, and there aren't any, although I think if you read close enough, you will find answers for yourself and you'll find meaning for yourself. I don't know that there's one correct, this is what's actually going on type of way to read this book. So we have this quote about Whirl, that new drug. It says, Whirl is a poltergeist drug. And I mean, that says a lot, right? But while these people are eating it, inhaling it, whatever they're doing with it, it makes them see things, and like strings hanging from your mouth and things like that. And there's a lot of talk in this book about alternate dimensions, about opening these portals and speaking to other beings. And so you don't know if they're seeing things because the drug is making them hallucinate, or if they're seeing something that might actually be there. And then we also have one quote here about the drug as well. Dang it, I didn't mark the correct place, but basically there's talks of fungus or parasites that infect something that make them do something else. That was a horrible explanation. What I meant to say was fungus or parasites that infect a host and make them behave in a way that they wouldn't ordinarily behave. So then you're left to think maybe this drug has some sort of fungus on it, because it's sold at stores. So I don't know that it's like what I envision, which I don't know. Again, it's been a few weeks since I've read this, so, you know, leave me any comments clearing anything up. But I picture it as like a salvia. You know how people were smoking that? I don't remember what it was for, but it was sold at a bunch of shops and people were just taking it and smoking it, and it wasn't its intended purpose, but you could buy it legally. That's kind of how I pictured what Whirl was. I'm not sure if we're given that information, or if it's just implied, or if it is, like, I just can't imagine that it's just some random legal drug that's just been thrown on the market, you know? But that's how I picture it, like salvia. The thing that I love so much about this writer, I really enjoy writers that have faith enough in their audience to come to their own conclusions where it's not directly spelled out for them. So in this particular case, there are kind of these rituals people do. Certain items are collected, like this one has a mug of ash, a coil of twine, bundles of dried plants, and a box cutter. So you'll see that, and then 200 pages later, you'll see almost those same exact items, except for instead of a box cutter, it'll be brass knuckles at someone else's place. So you can, through, you know, the little clues that are given to you throughout the book, know that whatever this person's doing, that person's in on it too. And it is interesting when you're looking at how those characters react to other people, to themselves, like if they've lost their shit or if they are coherent human beings. So yeah, I just really appreciate this author's writing style. I also wanted to talk about adolescence, because this book is mostly about teens, and the adolescent portion of the book is so long. Then you shift into adulthood and it's like this much of the book, right? So probably this much is about their adolescence. It's very free and they can kind of do what they want and make their own decisions, and life is fun. And then you have this short portion of adolescence where it's mundane, it's boring, they're not having the fun that they used to have. Well, let me just read you this quote. Okay, it says, "Time compresses the older you get. Days turn to weeks, turn to months, turn to seasons, turn to years, until your life resides in just one moment expanding forever, where each step and breath folds wrinkles into your face, carving minute irreversible wounds between your joints, pressing down the notches between your spine, driving your ankles and knees to ruin. I feel it now, and it'll only be worse in the future." Time is also kind of more distorted for these characters when they're older. They come back to the town after they've aged, after they've grown into adulthood, and they're like, "Oh, you've been gone for 3 years." And they're like, "No, I haven't." And I think that this is, I mean, such an interesting way to talk about adolescence versus adulthood, and how you can have one summer as a child and it feels like 10 years, and then all of a sudden you're an adult and you blink and you're like, "Oh, I'm 87. Like, time just passes by so much faster when you're in this routine and you are forced to do things that you have to do and not things that you want to do. And so I don't know, maybe this has a deeper meaning, especially with things like the alternate dimensions or whatever is going on in there. But I wanted to point that out because I do think that it was intended to be that way, where adolescence is such a huge part of the book. Then we get that paragraph, and then we have adulthood being so small. And yeah, I just thought that that was an interesting thing. I'm sorry I say interesting so much. I don't know any other words. It's the only word I know. Just a heads up, this is the part of the video where I talk a little bit more in detail about what actually happens in the story, more of the plot. So I just wanted to give you an extra little warning in here in case you wanted to click off and not know anything about the story before going into it. As far as what's going on in the story, we do find that Tyler, well, there is first of all mention of some man who was trying to find the weight of a soul, and he died doing that. Then we have Tyler's father's journals, which show him taking some drug. It wasn't Whirl, but it was some other drug. And it seems like he's, I don't know, either trying to replicate this man's ideas, or maybe even trying to like connect to that person's spirit. And then we have Tyler, who's doing the same thing, but with the Whirl drug. And so you don't really know if he's achieved anything. I mean, he definitely is to blame for some things that happen in the story, but how far he is to blame, I think, is dependent on how you read the story. But you definitely do see his descent into something with these rituals, these drugs, his father's journals. You see something going on. So you know me, I gotta be annoying and dig under the surface and try to find some deeper meaning in everything that I read. And this is obviously just my interpretation. Everybody brings something different to a book. And that's why you can love a book and your best friend can hate it, because we all have our own experiences and memories and history and thoughts and opinions and morals that we bring every time we read a story. And that's the beauty of literature. But the thing that I kind of got from the story, which again is not, I'm not saying that this was even the intention of the writer or something that you'll get from the story, but for me it was more about drug addiction and how drug addiction can or does not only affect the person that is taking the drug, but also the people around them. Like, it destroys so many lives. And I just have had a lot of relationships with addiction in my life, not me personally, but just having to deal with it and seeing what somebody goes through. I mean, addiction is rough. Like, oh my gosh, it is raw and gross and rough. And that's how reading this book felt to me. So for me, I felt like there was kind of an underlying meaning of addiction destroying these people. And if you pay close enough attention, you do see the people that are closest to Tyler get hurt the worst. Not his mom, because his mom doesn't really care about him, not his acquaintances, and not the people who are just kind of like his classmates or whatever, but the people who love him and care about him the most. And that is true for drug addiction. So that is something that I took away from the story. But I do think that even if you're looking at it from the perspective of Tyler following in his father's footsteps, it does kind of reinforce that idea that, like, you know, addiction runs in families and genetics and the whole cycle of abuse of drugs or alcohol or what have you. So yeah, I don't know, but that's what I got from it. I also love the fact that this book does not idealize drugs. I love that it reminds me of these movies that I grew up reading or watching, sorry, like Trainspotting or The Salton Sea or Requiem for a Dream, like all these movies that you watch that make you feel dirty. It makes you want to take a shower. And actually, Trainspotting and Requiem were both books first. I don't have Trainspotting, but I do have the first book, which is Skag Boys, which is on my TBR cart right now, and I want to read it so bad. And then I have Requiem, but I haven't read that one either. Just to let you guys know, if you guys are interested in those movies, maybe you might enjoy those books. But anyways, but I do like the way that it doesn't idealize drugs, and it just makes you feel gross and dirty watching the descent of somebody who takes drugs. I hate drugs, okay? I hate them. I think they're awful. I've seen them ruin so many people's lives and just affect so many people. And so I do love books like this that might not even be about drug addiction, but it doesn't make you feel like drugs are cool, you know what I mean? And so yeah, I really enjoyed that. I also loved the use of drugs in this book, the strings falling from people's mouth and like the weird hallucinogenic writing style on the drugs. It really does. I mean, it makes you feel like you're there. It's very visceral, and that's why I loved those drug movies growing up. They're so visceral, and I've never read a book that made me feel the way that I felt watching those movies, and that's how this book made me feel. So I thought it was very impressive the way that it was written. Oh, one other thing actually is the title, Negative Space. This can be used to describe these pictures where negative space is used to show the image versus the actual, like a drawing. So I thought that that would be an interesting interpretation, especially if we're discussing different levels of consciousness or even different dimensions, or there's a lot of ways that you could take this book and a lot of weird things that are going on. And I will say too, there are some times when you're kind of thrown off kilter and you don't quite know what's going on, but if you keep reading, I think that you can kind of make sense of what it is. And so if this book feels kind of weird in the beginning, or if there are parts where you're like, I have no idea what's going on, you are not alone. I definitely felt like that a lot through the book, but I'm so glad that I read it. I thought that it was so interesting. I'm curious what you guys think of the ending. I will not be going into that because I don't want to give anything away, but I'm curious your thoughts on that. Otherwise, with the negative space, I did also find somebody refer to negative space in an article of the time spent scrolling on your phone, where you're just kind of like that mindless zombie, and I thought that that could also pertain to the book. So let me know what you guys think about that. Let me know what you guys think about the cover, because I really haven't thought too much about it. Gosh, what do you call these things? An hourglass with wings could show kind of like the passing of time or these alternate realities. And then you do have what looks kind of like there's a book and a skull on here and some plants and a candle. So it does look like maybe the setup to a ritual, and maybe that's what transcends time. I don't know. That's just my idea. Really quick looking at it. Even the back cover here, you have a lot of people worshiping this one man who's reading a book, and then you got some triangles on here. Really quick again, if you have this book, on page 186, there's more description of a triangle. There's a quick paragraph here. It says, picture a scalene right triangle with its longest side pointed toward heaven. At its base on the right side is the mind, and the angle opposite lies the body. The spirit resides at the top, advancing towards heaven, though never quite reaching it. It is distant from the mind, but even more so from the body. This is man's state. And then it goes on with a few more paragraphs to describe that. But I thought I would throw this in here in case you guys wanted to check that part out of the book and kind of make more sense about the triangles, but I'm pretty sure that's why they are on the cover. Okay, thanks. So I don't know. Let me know what you guys think of this one. All in all, a fantastic read. Definitely one that I'm going to have to read a few times to really get a full feel for, but very curious how you guys feel about this. Highly recommend this if you guys want something a little bit funky, a little bit out of the normal realm of a straightforward story, but you're interested to give it a read. I would highly recommend. I loved this. I thought that this was a blast. I think this author is a genius. Thank you so much for watching. Really excited to hear your opinions of that one. Let me know what you think. And otherwise, thank you for watching. Did I already say that? And I will see you soon with another horror video. Bye, guys.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear that the thoughts build up until I can't hear, that my mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper.